Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier ministre.
Thank you very much,
Mesdames
Mr.
et
Prime
Messieurs,
Minister.
le Premier ministre du Canada,
The Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Stephen Harper.
The Right Honourable Stephen Harper, Prime Minister of Canada.
Your Majesty, Monsieur le Premier Ministre de la République française,
Mr. Prime Minister of the French Republic, distinguished guests,
veterans, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for honoring us with your presence here today. Nous les Canadiennes et Canadiens présents ici,
we Canadians present here
sommes
today,
très loin de chez nous.
we are far from home.
Mais aucun endroit au monde
But there's no place in the world which gives us the impression of being more Canadian than here, because we feel around us here the presence of our forefathers.
Here today are a long way from home. But there may be no place on earth that makes us feel more Canadian, because we sense all around us the presence of our ancestors. If we close our eyes, we can see them, dressed in their olive khaki uniforms, rifles slung over their shoulders, the distinct wide-brimmed helmet perched on their heads. They are emerging from the filthy trenches, trudging through the boot-sucking mud, passing the skeletons of trees and the shell holes of blood, surrounded by the horrible noises of war. Overhead, the Canadian red ensign is fluttering through the smoke. 100,000 courageux Canadiens,
100,000 courageous Canadians fought here 90 years ago. 3,598 died. Every country has its own history, its history of its own creation, and the First World War and the Battle of Vimy Ridge are crucial in the history of our country, because it was here where for the first time our army fought together, and the result was a spectacular victory.
100,000 brave Canadians fought here 90 years ago today. 3,598 died. Every nation has a creation story to tell. The First World War and the Battle of Vimy Ridge are central to the story of our country. The Somme, Ypres, Passchendaele, Beaumont-Hamel, the names of all the great battles are well known to Canadians and Newfoundlanders. But we know the name of Vimy best of all, because it was here for the first time that our entire army fought together on the battlefield. And the result was a spectacular victory, a stunning breakthrough that helped turn the war in the Allies' favor. Often,
you can understand the importance of events once history has been written. But in the case of Vimy, everybody immediately understood the enormity of what these Canadians had achieved.
Often the importance of historical events is only understood with the benefit of hindsight. But at Vimy, everybody immediately realized the enormity of the achievement. Brigadier General Alexander Ross famously said that when he looked out across the battlefield, he saw, and I quote, Canada from the Atlantic to the Pacific on parade, and that he felt he was witnessing the birth of a nation. A year after the war ended, the brilliant Canadian commander at Vimy, Sir Arthur Currie, put it another way in a speech at Toronto's Empire Club. Canada was a nation of immigrants before 1914, he said. Now, these men who have come back are your very own. Les anciens combattants de Vimy.
And so, the veterans of Vimy communicated, they conveyed their story to their children, and we, from generation to generation, we communicated to our children. We see the thousands here today, and some of them will come back here one day with their children and with their grandchildren, because nothing tells the history of Vimy and Canadians at Vimy in the First World War with so much power, with so much eloquence as this extraordinary monument. It reminds us of the enormity of their sacrifices and the enormity of their task, which we all have to assume now, to follow their example, to love our country and to defend its freedom forever.
The veterans of Vimy passed their stories to their children, who passed it to theirs, who passed it to us, who are passing it to our children, thousands of whom are with us today. And some of them will return here someday with their children and their grandchildren. Because nothing tells our story of the First World War as eloquently or as powerfully as Walter Allward's extraordinary monument to the 11,285 Canadians who fell in France with no known resting place. Allward said he was inspired by a dream. He saw thousands of Canadians fighting and dying on a vast battlefield. Then, through an avenue of giant poplars, a mighty army came marching to their rescue. They were the dead, Allward said. They rose in masses and entered to fight and aid the living. I have tried to show this in this monument to Canada's fallen, what we owed them and will owe them forever. It is sometimes said that the dead speak to the living. So at this special place, at this special time, on this special day, let us together listen to the final prayer of those whose sacrifice we are honoring. We may hear them say softly, "I love my family. I love my comrades. I love my country, and I will defend their freedom to the end."